All right, welcome to Believe in Chargers. Excited to be here on a Monday night as we are recording this. Great to have you back, Lorenzo. We were thinking of you, sending you all of our positive energy that we could. A lot of people reached out in the comments as well. So hopefully you felt it because
Yep.
certainly you were missed last week, brother.
Thank you guys. Thanks for the prayers. Thanks for everything. I really appreciate it. But the show must goes on, man. Mom's in a better place, and appreciate you, brother. Appreciate all the wonderful texts and you and Lindsay and the condolences. So we're ready.
Right on. Well, it's great to have you back. Do everything we can to support you and get you through this one. I know the people want to hear from you. It is the time of year when hope is alive, when excitement is abound. It's players that it's Christmas. You got gifts that you for old people like us. We go through the Sears catalog and we circle the toys that we want, and then you hope that that's what's under the tree. And I think that's essentially what happened. I guess the one difference is from that is that you have you have presents that were already under the tree, and then someone came and stole them from you. So it does kind of work that way with Zion and Oweh both leaving. But I'm going to start at the my favorite signing because it's an opportunity for me to ask you about it, Lo. We knew that Scott Matlock was going to be a tough fit at fullback for what Mike McDaniel likes to do in this offense. Alec Ingold is a Pro Bowl fullback. He's been great for McDaniel in Miami. He was great in Vegas and Oakland for the Raiders. Just kind of resetting that fullback position and that blocking tight end position, likely out Matlock. And we know Disley in Charlie Kolar, and we'll get into that. That's a great signing. And Alec Ingold, and kind of what it means, what you think that signals for this offense moving forward. New blocking tight end, the best one on the market.
Yep.
New fullback, best one on the market.
Yeah, I think it means a lot. It tells you that Harbaugh's still not changing the identity. I know we talked about, hey, bringing in a new OC and, of course, the way they're going to, McDaniels, how he moves guys around and, what you see is the what you get. But at the end of the day, you still have to line up and play smash mouth football. And Harbaugh said, we're going to get a tight end. That's one of the best in the game. And we're going to get Ingold, a guy who can be a hammer, a guy who understands how to block, who knows how to fit, but also create a new line of scrimmage, and he can catch the ball at the backfield. So you went out and got a true fullback for this offense. And, hey, kudos. Matlock was a great guy, great person, good guy, but you needed a smaller fullback. You need a guy that can fit between these seams, because when you got another 300 or 400, 300 plus going through there, you're asking your offensive line to create more space. It's kind of too big at times. So you clogged up some holes. So I think with bringing in Alan Ingold, what he is as a true fullback, a guy that can come in and be the hammer and not the nail, I think the Chargers are heading in the right direction.
Yeah, I think, for people and then look, Zion's out. I don't need to kind of run through. I'm sure if you're listening to or watching Believe in Chargers on a Monday night or Tuesday of free agency, you're a junkie. You know what's happened. Zion left for a little over 16 mil per. I thought it was a pretty fair contract that he got from the Browns in terms of guarantees and annual. I didn't think it was anything too exorbitant. Always, I thought was a little bit high. That one didn't surprise me that they were like, oof, $100 million, man. You got as much money guaranteed as Aiden Hutchinson, and you got an annual as Benito. Like that's a tough one. That one I understood. It's like, oh wait, the question would be, was he a product of his environment? Because he had 0 sacks in Baltimore when he was the number one guy and was getting a lot of attention. You drop him in between Khalil and Thule, and the three of them together are putting together all these pressures and always getting all these sacks. So I think it's a question of, do we need to pay $25.5 million a year for that? Or can we find something in the draft? Or, I think there's still I'm trying, it's all happening. So pardon me, everybody. Don't think I'm ignoring Low. I'm listening to every word he's saying. I'm just constantly refreshing to
Sure.
see if there's anything happening out there, because I don't think Mafe has signed yet. So Oweh is gone to the Commanders. Yeah, they've got him on here. So I think Mafe might still be out here. So I think it's a question of, can you find somebody at a little bit of a lesser number, whatever you were comfortable paying Oweh? Maybe it's 20, maybe it was 21 and not 25. Maybe the guarantees were a little bit different, that you could drop in there and make it work, especially considering what would be around him.
Yeah, and you look at Oweh, he was a product of his environment. I mean, he was in Baltimore, and it's a reason why Baltimore let him leave. Because if you don't let pass rushers get out of the door, and you see what the Raiders understood what they had in their pass rusher, and they let him go. But what, for 2 first-round picks, because they know what he brought to the game. And Baltimore said, "Hey, we are lacking in that position." And you went out and say, "Look, in order for his defense to work, we got to get a pass rusher." So Baltimore does that. Oweh goes to the Commanders, but you've seen who was there. You think about the Commanders; they did not have a great pass rush, so they said, "We're going to overpay." You had Von Miller, who's older, who's past his prime. That was on there. You did not have a guy that can really get after and wreck the habit on defense. So
Yeah.
the Commanders, you're going to overpay. That's just how the market does, and that's why the Commanders. It doesn't make them the smartest team. It doesn't make them the most efficient team. It just says you lack that bad. You were that bad in sacks that you said, "I'm willing to overpay $3, $4, $5 million over just because we need something." So sometimes it can bite you, come back to bite you. And I don't think that he is. I think he's a great pass rusher, but without a doubt, being in the Chargers defense, without a doubt, it helped him tremendously.
Yeah, I mean, look, would I like to have him back? Yes. I would. There were a couple games where, man, you look at that length and you look at that bend and you're like, ooh, that is pretty.
He's special.
He's special. At the same time, I guess I kind of get it. But as I said, look, the market is what it is. And a lot of teams had money, and Maffei's off. So that's I forgot he signed with the Bengals. So he's out. So as of right now, who's left? Trey Hendrickson. That's going to be probably too rich unless they can figure something out there. I can't imagine they would do that with having brought back Khalil, on that short-term 18 mil. But, you look at the deals they're building right now, and they're pretty low cost up front. So I think there's still, let's see, current APY. Hendrickson is still out there. Reddick, no. Bosa, no. Leonard Floyd, now. There's not a lot out there. So I think, to me, what does that tell me? 22. 22 goes from being an interior offensive lineman. It's a deep edge class. TJ Parker was someone that we talked about as kind of looking like he's going to be there at 22. And that's the thing, remember? So, free agency and the draft work together. They can say it's best player available and need, and we're not drafted on need and all that. Yeah, but these players are going to be graded very similarly. And, what do you know? The need. TJ Parker just inched out, whomever it might be, Pregnon or whatever, interior lineman, Proctor. Yeah, we just had Keldrick fall a little bit higher, and that's what I think we're going to end up seeing, and that's fine. I mean, it's a premium position. It's a deep edge class. Zion Young, you could trade back and get an R. Mason Thomas or a Zion Young, a Malachi Lawrence, like Luke was talking about last week. Derek Moore, I like a lot as a second rounder. I think he would very likely be there when they pick in the second round. Obviously played for Coach Harbaugh. So I still think there's quite a few guys that you can get and drop in, and I feel pretty good about.
Yeah, and I think that I think when you look at the Chargers and what Harbaugh's probably going to do, you mentioned some guys. It probably won't be Bosa because of the fact the injury. We know he's already been there, had his stint there. But you can go get a guy that you said, we just need a guy that we can plug in. We need a guy that can be a good backup, a guy that can go out and play 15, 20 snaps. So, because even though these guys are past their yesterday years, or some of these guys they've shown you the plays, you don't need them to be every down guys. You need some backups. And that's what I think you'll see the Chargers. They went out, they say, look, we're going to get the center, we're going to get a tight end, we're going to get us a fullback. We know those are the things we need. Of course, we're going to look at the guard position, who we can slide there. But at the end of the day, you're like, okay, we need some guys that is going to bring depth to this team that can go out for a series and hold it down. That's what you need. So I think that this is, and then in the draft, of course, you're getting a couple guys. You got a guy that can play 10 snaps that you get in the draft. You got another guy play 15 snaps that you have in free agency. And how you got another guy that's playing 30. There's your whole game. So when you look at it like that, and those guys, when they play fresh, when they know that they're spot players, play with a lot of guys like that. Stephen Cooper. We remember the Chargers when we had a lot of guys, 95 Phillips. He had Foley, had Foley starting. Then you play with those guys from behind. Then they end up getting more play time. So I think the Chargers are just going to build like that in free agency, that they say, okay, this guy is going to play this amount of plays, and we know that he can hold it down. I think that's the way they're going to do now from here on out.
Yeah, and look, they have a lot of money. And they also have to rebuild an entire offensive line, and they got what I love the center signing of Biadasz. I talked about it at the end of last week. on Chargers Weekly, and I pointed out, like, look, I basically trying to think the best way to put this so it doesn't sound like stupid or jerky, but like I knew the Raiders were going to spend whatever it took to get Linderbaum. Like no one was going to outbid them. They were so hyper focused on we're taking a quarterback number one. Our head coach is going to be an offensive play caller. Check. We've got to protect our young quarterback so he doesn't get his head caved in a division with that Broncos front, with Thule and Khalil Mack and Tier Tart. So you knew they were just going to spend, and they gave Tyler Linderbaum per year basically what the Chargers gave Biadasz for 3. And Biadasz was a Pro Bowler 2 years ago. Like, it just, so you knew they weren't going to get Linderbaum. So the fact that they were able to get ahead of it and I'm looking up the center class right now, when I go current APR. So right now, the Chargers ended up getting Tyler Biadasz for less than the Packers paid for Sean Ryan. And I know he's got guard flexibility, but he is nowhere near as good of a center as Biadasz. And McGovern McGovern never left. He was staying with the Bills. So you're good. Cade Mays end up getting 8.3 per. Postage got who else? Bradbury, I'm not a fan of. So yeah, I am so good with 10 mil for Biadasz. I think that's perfect. It's a pretty big number for a center, but at the same time, he's a great center. So I now look at the guards. Zion's the highest paid guard in free agency at 16.5. Ed Ingram got 12.5. Ciamalo, I would have loved to see him get that. I thought he would have looked great with the Chargers. He got 10.5. They end up getting Cole Strange for, I think it's 13, so average of 6.5. And look, Cole was solid for the Dolphins last year. He played for Butch Berry, and who's their O-line coach, is now with the Chargers. He played for Mike McDaniel, and I think that's the other thing you have to remember with these O-linemen. Just talking to the people that are listening and watching, is they've got a head coach of the offense, and he's probably directing them and saying, "Hey, these are the type of guys that I think we can use. You don't need to go." If Zion's at 16.5 per year, I think we can fill in the blank. Elton Jenkins, I think, would be very interesting. Butch worked with him in Green Bay, and I think he's a perfect left guard. And if you wanted to pay him 16.5 per, I'd have no problem with that whatsoever. And I know they have the money. And if that's what you came out with, Elton at left guard, he just got cut by the Packers. So you're talking about comp pick is great there. You're still good, even though you'd have to sign him for a big number. I do think,
because the Chargers, the way that they go about their business, do you think if he wouldn't pay 16 for Zion, do you think that there's a guard out there, or do you think it seems like they just have a number that says we're not going to move from this number? If this is our number, we're going to stay here, or if not, we're going to look to build in the draft. Or do you think that they'd be like, hey, look, we're going to overpay, or we're going to set the market even higher than with Zion?
I could see them doing another Cole Strange type of signing. Like, I think Chris Paul's an interesting name, who played pretty well in Washington and played next to Biadasz. And so you have a center, like, hey, it seemed like the offensive line kind of picked up a little bit when Chris Paul was plopped in there. What can you tell us about him at left guard? And like, that's going to be a low number because they have to build depth. Like,
right,
Jamari Sawyer, like Zion Johnson, all these guys are Mekhi Becton. They're gone. Like they've got to fill 5-6 spots on the offensive line. It's not just getting starters. So I think, on that, Bradley Bozeman, gone. Mekhi Becton, gone. Zion Johnson, gone. They brought back Trevor Penning. I think that's almost less of a depth piece and more of a sixth offensive lineman piece, something Mike McDaniel did a lot of in Miami, and the Chargers really liked doing with Jim Harbaugh last year. And I think he's a perfect sixth offensive lineman. He's a big mother scratcher, and he's athletic, and I think he plays really well in that role, and that's a big number for a sixth offensive lineman. I think there's some depth there as well. I don't think they look at him as their swing tackle. I thought tackle was very tough for him last year. Maybe he's better suited to play in a zone scheme with Mike, in a wide zone with Mike McDaniel, and so that's part of it. But I know I'm running on here, Lo. Just jump in and I'll shut up. But I think looking at it, I think they will pay a premium for premium players. They looked at Charlie Kolar as the best blocking tight end on the market, and they gave him the most money a blocking tight ends ever got in NFL history. Fine. It's, is it a big number? No, but it's over $8 million per year for a primarily blocking tight end. Now, I think Kolar's going to be special in this offense. I think he's going to be great. So that's a signing I'm very excited about. They gave a fullback $7.5 million, so they're giving money to non-premium positions that fit what their coach wants to do on offense.
Yeah, and you gotta love that. When you see that, you're like, okay, this team wants to do this, and this is going to be the mindset, and this is going to be the program moving forward. And you look at it, you're like, okay, how, and that's what you think about your coach. Is this a long term, short term? McDaniels, how much? And that's what's interesting. I know it's free agency. You got to be happy. It's exciting times because, like you said, it's Christmas all over again. You're trying to go fill your team,
Yeah.
believe have a chance to compete for a Super Bowl, which is great. But then you say, okay, how far do you let him go? How far when you know this guy's aspiring to be a head coach again in a year? So what type of offense are these guys going to be able to fit the next scheme? Do they say I think that Harbaugh has more of a say in this because he's got to have players. He's got to have guys that say, look, if Mike it is gone, these players do need to be able to play and be able to sustain for a couple of years. So I think when you look at the guys they got, the best block tight end, guess what? I don't care what offense you're running. I want the best blocking tight end in football. I have it. So that's unmutable. Now, if you're talking about fullback, you think about goals, what he brings to the table. He is a hammer. He's a blocker. So you have another good Pro Bowl type of fullback. So it doesn't matter what you do. That's why I think that this offense, yes. Do I think, the offensive coordinator's involved? Absolutely. But do I think Harbaugh's involved as well? Yes, because you went out and got players that can fit and they're the best at their positions.
Yeah, and I think, and it's a two-way street, right? The players got to want to come here. I think Rashid Shaheed would have been a perfect fit, but he went back to Seattle, which is understandable. They won a Super Bowl there. He was sensational in that offense and has a rapport with Sam Darnold. So, and he got $50 million or whatever it was. He get 17 mil per. Great, congratulations! And they gave up draft capital for him. So, he would have been great here. Get that speed on the outside. So he's not coming. And I think, now you look at it and you're like, okay, well, now we can wait for the second wave of free agency. I think he would have been someone that could have fit into that, speed sort of like, okay, I'll pay a premium, but Shaheed can do what Darius Davis does, kick returns and punt returns, and be a deep threat. And when that disappeared, rumors were that they were in the mix for A.J. Brown. Maybe they still are. If they're not spending their money at the top of the market on edge and they're not spending their money top of the market on guard, then maybe there is a potential if the price comes down on A.J. Brown and they don't have to trade their 1 and they can just trade their 2 and maybe a 2 next year, then okay, go get them. Now you got that filled. Like, it's not just today. For the people that are freaking, are there things that I wish they would have done? Yeah, I would have loved, I think Ciamolo was someone that I liked the way that he would have fit. The guy's plenty athletic enough. He's strong as an ox. And he ended up going to the Cardinals on a pretty reasonable deal, 10.5 on average for 3 years. So at the same time, like I said, you don't know what Mike McDaniel and Butch Berry's evaluations were. Like, there's still Bitonio, Teller, Zeitler. They just saw Elijah Vera Tucker. We talked about it. I love the idea of a low or a high floor. Elijah, here's $10 million, $11 million incentives. We can get you to 20, because you've torn 2 triceps and had a leg injury that have cost you 3 of your 4 seasons. But man, if he's right, you're going to feel pretty damn good. And then you can back that up. That's where the Chris Paul thing comes in. Hey, let's sign Elijah for this and give him this floor and these incentives. And let's go out and get Chris Paul for a couple $1 million a year. And that way you have a backup plan you feel pretty darn good about. Like, I think all that stuff is still in play. And I'm hopeful that, that's how this thing shakes out.
Yeah, and like you're saying, they're just building right now depth, and you say, okay, cool. Can this guy be the starter? Yes. But let's go and make sure that our team is ready to go. Before the draft, you don't want to go into the draft saying, we got to fill this or we're in trouble. You want to say, look, if this draft were to happen, if we weren't to miss on these guys, do we have a good enough team to play now? And that's what the Chargers are doing. They're saying, look, we're going to backfill. We're going to get some good players, but then we're going to get some guys maybe not as good, but they still can start in this league. And I think that's what you have to do, especially in agency, is build, like you said, build, but also just make sure you got some depth pieces, because you know how this Charger team and how the NFL is. It's too many injuries. Lots of injuries happens every year.
Yeah, and look, I think it's worth pointing out that you still have the draft. You still have guys that are going to get cut. You still have
Yep.
dudes that are going to, there's still so many different waves to this thing. And I think in terms of sort of where the Chargers were, yes, we identified once they got Biadasz on a pretty friendly deal, as opposed to paying $20 million plus for Tyler Linderbaum. And especially the way it shook out, where I think his cap hit this year is right around $4.5 million, the way they structured it. A lot of these deals are leaving them room to spend money. And I do think that there's potential for trade there. That's the way that maybe they're setting this up, that it's not just signing somebody on day one. It's also, setting yourself up when teams are right up against the cap and they got to get some stuff done and they got to move on from people like Michael Pittman, traded to the Steelers by the Colts when they re-signed Alec Pierce, and that's just kind of how they wanted to approach wide receiver. Like, I get that. I think the other thing to kind of point out is people that are, very hyper-focused on, Joe Hortiz is so obsessed with comp picks. Like, you've got to get past it. And so I think the best way, like right now, they're going to get a third for Oweh is the way it lines up. The Zion, they would have got a fourth for based on that number. But basically, the Chargers were willing to trade a fourth-round pick for Charlie Kolar. So when they signed Charlie Kolar, they're like, yeah, we're giving up a fourth. We'll trade a fourth, the end of the fourth round, a comp pick, because we want Charlie Kolar, and he's worth $25 million to us. And so, that's the way you kind of have to process it, I think, is you have a third-round pick right now for Oweh. Do you want to give up that third-round pick to, if Trey Hendrickson really wants to be here and we can make something work magically with the way the number works instead of just like a 1-year, $28 million deal, can you figure something out with some void years and spread it out so it doesn't hurt you as much? Is that worth a third-round pick? Yeah, maybe. But that's kind of the conversation that you have to have, is you are giving up a draft pick if you go out and sign another big money free agent that was not cut by his team, but is just entering free agency at the end of a contract.
Right. And when you're looking at this Charger team, okay, if you said what is the glaring need right now? Would you say guard is?
Yeah.
So you're looking at this Charger team saying we have to get a guard, two guards, right? Or you think that?
Well, they got Cole Strange, so I think they got one. And Cole played. He played a lot of snaps. He might have played the whole season. He played quite a few snaps last year. I can give them to you exactly. Let's see. Right. So last year Cole played. Here we go. Yeah, 808 snaps.
Oh, wow.
Out of a possible 982. He was out there for 800. His pass block grade was not great. His run block grade was average. So I think it's one of those where let me see. I'm trying to see, what do we got here? Pass protection, 23 pressures at a 5% pressure rate. It's pretty high. Pass block efficiency at 97.5. Had a couple decent games. Had a good game against the Saints where he did not allow a single pressure. Didn't allow, a pressure against the Ravens. Against the Chargers, he got the break speed off him. 4 pressures. And, yeah, that was his lowest rate. That was his lowest number of the year. Actually, no, the Panthers, he was even worse. So, yeah, Cole, I think, is what he is. He's good. He's a good depth piece. If you've got to start him, you can probably figure it out. If he's playing between Tyler Biadasz and Joe Alt, you feel a little bit better about it. Or between Slater and Tyler Biadasz, you feel a little bit better about it. He's got an anchor as a tackle next to him who's going to help him out a lot compared to the tackles that he had out in Miami. So I think you can make that case there. But I do think there's still hey, we still need to draft a guard and we still need to perhaps go out and sign somebody else.
Yeah, and to your point, you have to. When you look at the Saints and you talked about the Baltimore and the Saints, these are two defenses that really didn't really have great defense up front. Then you talked about the Chargers, got the break speed off, and you're talking about a team that wants to spread you out, create a lot of one-on-one matchups, and make you play out in space, and you see that. So it's a situation where can he play and can he start? Yes, but so it's like, are you always trying to upgrade that? I don't know, and that's where free agency is going to, of course it's here, it's upon us. But those are some of the things that you look at and you say, okay, we had a guy last year that didn't play, that had built like Tarzan but played like Jane because you just injuries and the things,
And
and
yeah.
and you was always hurt. So when you compare the two, maybe athletically and just far as physical, maybe it's better, but you had to get someone you can depend on. And that's what this Charger team had to do. And that's why you had to cut ties with a guy you paid some money to, but just wasn't dependable.
Yeah. And that's, again, I don't think that they're signing a guy in Cole Strange to be, oh, yeah, we got our starter. I think that's more of a depth / he can compete. Yeah, we can compete. We can get another one of these deals out there, and then we can get perhaps a big deal out there, like an Elton or an Elijah Vera Tucker. You can get a Cole Strange in. You can get a Chris Paul in here. You can get I didn't think that Sean Ryan was going to get that kind of money. I was very surprised by that. So it's like, that's the one thing. I said it earlier, and I think it holds. Like, the market's the market, man.
Yep.
You don't get to make your own rules. If you want to buy a Mercedes and you're like, man, these Mercedes are expensive. Well, guess what? You ain't driving a Mercedes then.
Exactly.
Because that's what they cost.
Yep. And money, to your point, man, they just don't grow big men. That's why some of these guards, you're like, my God, overpay, because they have to protect the quarterbacks. And you look at some of these guys like, oh my God, look at Zion. Zion didn't have the best feet. Zion can play, but sometimes you get tripped up. You twist games. He had problems sometimes seeing. But look what the market is willing to give, because you just don't grow. These guys just don't grow on trees. You got a backup that you went out and played 800 some plays, 800 plays he played last year, but he's probably a backup. But you had to go and say, look, if we had to, we gotta play him. You're looking at this Charger team that you really do need two guards. Yeah, you have someone that can hold it down, and that's why they're going to go out in free agency. And it's just, the thing about it is, what's going to be the number? Because what happened to Herbert last year. We saw the many hits, the finger, all the things that this guy went through in the playoffs. He just you can see ghosts because of all have to hold onto the ball, because he's trying. Time to go through a second read, he's getting hit. The pressure. You have to solidify this offensive line. And last year was a big deal because you had both your tackles gone. So I get that. But now you got better in the middle. You got better center. You upgraded at the center position. But right now, we know
huge upgrade
tackles. But the guard position right now is going to be a huge question mark right now.
Yeah. And I think, that's the thing is I said this last week, like, the jump from the worst center in the league to the 11th best center in the league.
Huge.
It's beyond. It's bigger than going from number 10 to number 1. Like, when you get to competency, that's what we're talking about. And I think in terms of Mekhi Becton versus Cole Strange, yeah, Becton's the better player. But the guy's not out there. Guy's not out there, and a lot of times when he was lost. And so it's just the consistent. It's like, hey, this is what he gives us. These are his weaknesses. How do we overcome them? Let's go. Like, at least there's that. And that's one of the things that I appreciated about Zion, and why I took a ton of incoming. That's just so funny. Like, everybody's all over me for being a Zion shill. And then when he leaves, they're like, why are the Chargers so cheap? They couldn't keep Zion. I was like, I thought you didn't want him. And I'm just a shill. Like, what are we doing? But the thing about Zion was availability. Guy was out there for every snap. He's strong as an ox. He's a great guy. His teammates love him. Effort on every snap. Can he see a stunt? Not to save his life. But, all the other stuff is there, and you can continue to work on it. And there were enough windows where it seemed like he was starting to pick him up that maybe you could go. And I get this $16.5 million is a lot, but guy was going to be out there. And Rashawn Slater loves him, and Herbert loves him. And so I think that's why you could have made the case, until you just felt like, okay, well, he's more of that $12 million guy than he is the $16 million guy. Okay, well, then I hope you guys are going to go out and sign the $12 million guy. Hopefully there's another one out there because you need it. If you are willing to spend that on him, then I would love to see, this is what's been allocated for the left guard position, and we're going to pay it. And if it's 14, because like I said, Seumalo was 10.5, and I would assume they were willing to allocate that. And for whatever reason, either he didn't want to come here and wanted to go to Arizona instead, and that may be the case. But there are still enough guards out there, as I've talked about, whether it's Bitonio or Teller or Zeitler or Daniels or Glasgow or Elijah Vera Tucker or who else is in there? I've mentioned, I mean, there's a ton, and then you've got the draft where maybe it is trading back a little bit and drafting Pregnon. It's trading back a little bit, or Proctor's sitting there staring at you with the guard tackle flexibility. Like but you need an edge now because you let Oweh go. And like, that's where all this stuff starts to come into play. Basantis, if you trade back, is, somebody. And like I said, if you can trade out of 22 and you can pick up an extra 3 or a team that has multiple 2s for your 1, something like that, then that's where you can start to do a little bit of damage. And you can get your guard in Pregnon, you can get your guard in Basantis, you can get your edge, like we talked about, in Moore or whomever it may be. And that may be what they're going to have to look at doing. And that's really start to massage this board and get up and down as they try to kind of sort through how they can make this whole thing come together.
Yeah, and they will. They do a great job. They're gonna find a way to get the best 11 out there on the field. You have to. But I think that and I think the fans and the media, they will be on Coach Harbaugh's neck if he doesn't protect Herbert.
Yeah.
Herbert took, and we know the biggest reason is because he didn't have his 2 Pro Bowl tackles. That's both these guys hopefully will be back and play at a very, very high level. You went from having the worst center to the best center. Now you got it. Now you still got to make sure you can get those guards. If you can get that, I think that you have something, because that this team can flourish if your quarterback can stay upright and stay healthy. That is going to be a premium. So I think when you look at Joe, what he's going to do and what Harbaugh's going to do, they're going to do the right thing. I know money, and they watch that cap and they count their peanuts and count their nickels, but you have to be aggressive, and you're going to have to do something at this guard position. And you cannot wait to the draft. You have to have somebody in this free agency that can hold it down.
Yeah, I think they will. I think that's, like I said, there's enough competition level signings. I feel like there's got to be one out there. I feel like they were willing to spend a certain number for Zion, and that number is still going to pull someone. They're going to be able to, and hopeful of that.
Zion saying that he was it close, or he just his agent took him?
It's a big number, 16 and a half is a pretty big number. Like I said, I thought it was okay. I get it. It's what Aaron Banks got 19 and a half last year.
Oh.
So he got 16 and a half. So to me, maybe it was something that came from Butch Berry and Mike McDaniel. And they're like, no, I think, as great as Zion is, and if you want to bring him back, that's fine. But let's maybe look at this instead. I think this could work. I think this could work for us. And, that may be Cole Strange. We thought Cole was solid for us. They had the rookie, Savaiinea, who was not good last year. He had a rough go at their other guard position. And yet, what were the Dolphins in? What were the Dolphins in scoring? Like, I thought for the most part, at least for a little chunk of the year there, they did okay. I'm trying to look it up now, because that's the one thing about doing a show like this, and my apologies, everyone. I know I'm constantly looking off the screen and I'm scrambling and my thoughts aren't super concise, so I apologize. That is just what happens when you do a show with so many moving parts. Where are the Dolphins? Yeah, okay, I'm wrong. They only averaged 20 points per game, so it wasn't great last year. But what do we got? Yeah. A lot of that is, they scored 27 against the Patriots, 21 against the Bills, 27 against the Jets, 24 against the Panthers, 27 against the Chargers. They got smoked by the Colts and Browns, a combined 14, 10 to the Falcons, 6 to the Ravens. So it's kind of boom or bust for them.
Right.
What's that?
They were very, no, I was saying to Miami, they were very inconsistent last year.
Yeah. Yeah. So, look, again, positives. I love the Charlie Kolar signing. I think he's going to be great. I think the best, to me, like, I envision sort of like Kobe Parkinson for the Rams and what they got from him as like a blocking tight end plus from the Seahawks. And you think about how important he is to that run game with Kyron Williams and Blake Corum and having him out there. That's kind of like what Charlie Kolar can do, because he's good. And Kobe's also a pass catching threat. And so, like, to me, that's sort of where I see them. Like, yeah, this is a mandatory. I've got to have this for my offense to operate. Think about what George Kittle does for. I'm not saying Charlie Kolar is George Kittle, but Kittle can block his tail off
Sure.
and he can
Sure.
catch some passes, and you think about Kevin O'Connell, what they do, traded for TJ Hawkinson. Like it's sort of a non-negotiable for those sort of offenses. You need to have a guy that can block and catch the ball, and that's what Kolar can do. And I think there's reason to be very excited about that, to have an incredibly athletic fullback. He's not Kyle Juszczyk, but Ingold's pretty damn good. So I think it's putting together an offense for Mike McDaniel is kind of what we're talking about. Yeah, look at Parkinson. So he was signed as a blocking plus. Like he's a true Y, but he can also get out in the route and catch some balls. Last year he had 43 catches for 408 yards and 8 touchdowns.
Wow.
And he's a kick-ass blocking tight end. Like that, to me, that could be a Charlie Kolar line. It's a great signing, and I'm surprised that the Ravens weren't able to keep him there. What do you have last year? Yeah. See, like that's the thing. Last year, no wonder he wanted to leave. 15 targets, 142 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Like, get me out.
Get me out of here. Get me into a Kyle Shanahan style offense, and let me put up some numbers. So there's a reason.
Yeah, there's a reason, especially to, like you just alluded to, the run block. People don't understand how important it is for have a tight end that can create a new line of scrimmage. Now you got those trade blocks, the tight end and tackle, train up to the linebacker, but it also, you can make the run look like the pass. So now you'll see a tight end that can actually run fit and do those things and catch the ball. And that's what made Kittle so deadly for the Niners, is because he blocks so hard and because he comes out and it makes it look like block. And all of a sudden you see him slipping down the field because of the fact he's able, because the run game looks like the pass game. And that's what McDaniels is going to do with this offense. It's going to run is going to look like pass is going to look like run. And that's why you have guys always running down the field wide open, because defenders put their eyes in the backfield and they take their eyes off the work because it looks like run pass. So yeah. I'm excited about what they're doing. They're going to, this Chargers team, we got to trust the process. Every team is out there going to free agent. You can't get everyone. And I know people and fans, oh man, why do we get this guy? It's the way of the game. You can't get every free agent. That's why it's free agency, and guys are going to go where they want to go. And like you said, the market is going to dictate where guys go.
Yeah, and I'll kind of finish with this, well, because there's just, I know so much of this stuff is going to have an expiration date on it. There's going to be more guys signing all that from the time this posts. But I'll say this too. I think the important thing to remember is you have Mike McDaniel as your offensive coordinator. You got Amarion Hampton in that backfield. You've got Justin Herbert as your quarterback. And I want you to just think about the coaching tree of Kyle Shanahan. 49ers, Los Angeles Rams, what do they want to do? They want to run the ball, man.
Sure.
Like this is all predicated on wide zone. Everything else is born out of that. Can we run the ball and do all of this? I can't. And everything else operates off of that. And so Cole Strange is a much better run blocker than he is a pass blocker. Biadasz, anybody that's been paying attention has seen some of those highlights of him getting out there and cleaning house on the move. We know that Slater and Alt can run. If you can figure something out at that left guard, which I know they will, find another athlete. Like I said, even if it's a low number signing like a Chris Paul from Washington on that same play that Jakrowski Merritt scores the touchdown against the Chargers, who's out there with Biadasz? It's Paul and Biadasz, and they are, and Biadasz is cleaning out Derwin. So it's impressive stuff. Like that's what they want to do. They want to make sure they can run the ball. They're going to do it with an elite back, and then they're going to have a threat. And that's like that all comes into play as well. Like last few years, no one has been afraid to just come after Herbert. They just haven't. They have not been afraid. So now they're going to have to be a little afraid because McDaniel's going to catch you, man. He's going to catch you flat-footed, and you're going to eat an explosive. It's going to, because he does it to everybody. It's going to happen. And so that's also going to slow defenses down a little bit. But I'm excited about, again, Kolar, Ingold, Biadasz, and you might be upset about Oweh, and I think they'll have to figure that out. It all points to that's going to have to be their first pick in the draft unless something becomes available. And we'll see what happens with left guard, but there's still enough pieces out there that you can get some depth pieces, draft some guys. You can find starting guards in the third and the fourth round. Happens all the time. And I'm just anxious to see what we're talking about next week, Lo. I think it's a great start. It may not be the exact start that everybody wanted, but I'm excited about quite a few of the moves they've already made.
So am I, and I'm gonna leave you with this. I'm excited they brought Mack back. Khalil Mack,
Yeah, there you go.
he embodies the Chargers. The guy is a Charger for life. He loves being on this organization, and the guy brings it. You know what you're gonna get. He's an emotional leader. He's a leader for that defense. He's a leader for the offense. Khalil Mack is a great guy who galvanized. So that was one of the glue pieces I'm glad they brought back.
I'm glad you mentioned it. 40 minutes in, and I forgot Lowe, one of the most important Chargers. He's going to go down as one of the greatest Chargers ever. He's in his fifth year. He played 4 for the Bears, 4 for the Raiders. He's now been a Charger longer than any other team. He's going to go into the Hall of Fame, and he is a culture player. He sets the culture. He sets the tone. The defense respects the hell out of him. They follow him. And, last year he had to deal with that busted up elbow, and had he not, he would have put up another huge year and probably would not have been available for $18 million. So very excited that he's back. It's a huge get. You got 2 of your 3. Now you got to find that third guy. And looking forward to it, man. We'll be back next week. Did it a little bit early to react to day 1 of free agency.
Yep.
And it's great to have you back, Lo. Hope you're doing great this week. And we'll knock it out again next week. And a big thank you to our friends at FanDuel for putting it together for us. Chargers coming in plus 1,600 on their Super Bowl odds. The Rams and Seahawks tied atop the list there at plus 750 apiece. So still excited about what's to come, and see that number get a little bit lower, plus 15, plus 14. Maybe by the time this free agency is over, plus 12 is what we're looking at. So big thank you to FanDuel for doing it, and we'll be back again next week.
Bolt up, man.